I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. People can trickle in. So thank you guys for taking time out of your day to come hear me speak. We're going to talk about injury prevention. So without further ado. So the first thing I'd like to do, and I do this with the majority of my presentations because I'm very proud of my profession. I think we do some really cool things around the country. And so I always like to try to educate my audience on who I am and why in the world am I even qualified to talk about this. So I'm a certified athletic trainer. The NATA is our national organization, and they define us as healthcare professionals who provide and collaborate with physicians based on prevention, emergency care, clinical diagnosis, interventions, rehabilitation, and medical conditions. So I like to tell people that we're orthopedic specialists. A lot of the times you'll see us on ESPN when somebody goes down on the football field. Those typically, at least not all of them, there may be one physician that runs on the field, but those are all certified athletic trainers. And so we've kind of created a niche for ourselves, and that's lucky for me extended out here, and I really enjoy being out here at RehabWorks. All right. So, yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. So, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, athletic training traditionally has been a bachelor's degree. So it's a 4-year degree. You have to graduate from an accredited university, and it's an internship-based program, meaning that you have to sit, in order to sit for the certification exam after the program, you have to participate in 1,500 hours of clinical education, which is why my two awesome students are here for the semester. They're collecting their clinical hours so that they can be eligible to sit for the exam. In 2020, the CATIE, the Commission on Accreditation for Athletic Training Education, has mandated that now entry-level athletic training will be a master's degree. So all of these programs are either transitioning to an entry-level master's program or they're phasing out. Most of them are transitioning. So, and the scope of what they do and modify? It's expanding, absolutely. So 80+%, I'm not sure what the current statistics are, but 80+% of athletic trainers already have master's degrees in various things. So what's going to change is that they're adding certain things to the scope of practice. So they're adding phlebotomy. So a lot of athletic trainers get a phlebotomy certification separately, and therefore they give IVs at halftime for a lot of them, or they can do B12 injections or things like that that are necessary. We're already taught how to suture, but there's a certification that goes along with that. And athletic trainers are also being trained very similar to PAs, in that they'll participate in the OR with the physician during the surgery. So they'll be the one that helps, him with the procedure as well as doing the close-up stitches. So those are two examples of how the scope of practice will expand. Thanks. And anytime, if you guys have questions, please, I appreciate it. So the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society has deemed that October is National Ergonomics Month. I'm really thrilled to be a part of the KSE working group, Ergonomics working group, with Robin Kramer. Thank you, Robin, for putting it together and all the hard work you've done this month on, getting us set up for this. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity. So here's some of the presentations that are going on. Obviously, you guys are here, so you know about this first one. So that's me, and then I'm doing it again tomorrow over on the north end. And then Robin's going to be presenting next week. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to do one on industrial ergonomics, and I'm excited. A friend of mine who is a fellow athletic trainer, she's an injury prevention specialist at the Amazon Fulfillment Center in Ruskin, Florida. So she's volunteering her time to come over and give us some perspective on some of the things that they're doing ergonomically to prevent injuries. So we'll have that one in a few weeks. So these are some of the things that I thought of when I thought of Ergonomics Month. So you see this crazy contraption. To an unfamiliar person on some of the ergonomic equipment that I've seen over at ErgoWorks, that's what some of the keyboards look like to me. And maybe they will make you work a little faster. And we all, what I find working at RehabWorks is that a lot of the patients that come in with, musculoskeletal disorders as a result of their workstation know what to do, but this is how they treat it. Yeah, close enough. And then they ask for a sit stand, right? Or I think we're going to transition more to the lay down desk, in that you can be ergonomically sound while being as lazy as possible. So hopefully we don't go that direction. So what is the cost of an injury, right? A lot of these injury prevention programs are really starting to take stride, and ergonomics has a lot to do with that. So according to OSHA, these are the basic requirements of what a recordable injury is. And it's a medical treatment, anything beyond first aid. And first aid is very specifically defined in OSHA's verbiage. And so therefore, these preventive programs are helping to avoid these reportable injuries and therefore building better statistics. And also, we want good health and longevity for our patients, our employees. So these are some of the most frequent things that we're seeing. This was a study done by Merrill Lynch as of last year. This study was published February of this year. And the number one cause of injury, according to their insurance claims, is overexertion involving external forces. So that is really your lifting. Moving something, pushing, pulling, catching, throwing, which I'm not sure whose job that is, unless it's the fish market, right? But I'd be interested to find out. And that's the number one cause of injury. The second one here is a fall on the same level. So how many of you guys are familiar with the balance zone? We're going to be plugging that a little bit. So, and then down there we've got the slip or the trip as well that's associated with the balance zone and that injury prevention program. And then lastly, one of the things that I think pertains mostly to office ergonomics, which we're going to talk about, is those repetitive motion injuries, which is, we get people who have lateral epicondylitis from mouse clicking. So, and various other things that I'll get into here in a little bit. So this is big business. The total cost in 2015 to 2016 in their fiscal year was almost $60 billion based on lost time. And that doesn't include the indirect cost of hiring and temporary replacements and things like that. So they're willing, companies are willing, NASA is willing to invest some money into these things to avoid the cost on the back end. And again, I really do believe that, especially the culture out here, it's really about the employee. Let's keep them happy, let's keep them healthy, let's keep them productive. That's why RehabWorks exists. That's why the fitness center exists. So, overexertion. So we're going to start off talking about that. And so we're going to discuss what overexertion is. OSHA defines it as lifting, pushing, pulling, turning, throwing, or catching. So pretty much when you interact with another object, forcibly, intentionally, and then ultimately results in an injury. So lifting techniques are important. Even bending over to pick up a piece of paper with poor technique, that we've had that symptom or we've had that mechanism of injury come into the clinic frequently. It doesn't really matter how heavy it is. Obviously, the heavier it is, the more likely it is to injure you, but it doesn't take much. So, in the words of Sir Isaac Newton, bro, do you even lift or raise heavy objects against the force of gravity? I thought that was kind of funny. So, we've been lifting and moving things. It's a natural part of life. Whether you do it at home, whether you do it at work, it's moving things around is what we do. We're just very intelligent ants, right? So, what about the back? How is it designed to deal with these forces? So there's 3 distinct curves in the spine. Well, 4 really, if you include the coccyx or the sacrum, this tailbone area. So the lumbar curve is a lordotic curve, which is a concave curve. The thoracic curve is convex, and the cervical curve is also lordotic or concave. Arches are well designed to deal with forces, and therefore that's why we're designed this way. But they do have their limits. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the anatomy. I'm going to do my best not to get too specific in the anatomy, but I feel like to educate you on some of why these injuries occur, this is necessary. So this is the structure of a lumbar disc. These are the spinous process and the transverse processes. Those are attachments for musculature. Here we have facet joints, which is part of the way that these vertebrae stack on top of each other and articulate with each other. You have your central cavity, or your spinal nerves, and then also coming out of the side of these foramen is where our peripheral nerves start to come out. These are where the nerve roots come out, and that's where we get a lot of problems. And then, of course, you have the disc. The disc is kind of, the hot topic for back pain. Oh, I've got a herniated disc. I need to have surgery. No, you don't. Come see us first. Please come see us first. So injuries are pretty much categorized in 4 main areas: sprains, strains, herniated discs, or disc issues, and degeneration. So what's a strain? A strain is an injury to a muscle or a ligament, contractile fiber. So if we're dealing with, you can't strain a knee necessarily, but you can sprain a knee, and you can't sprain a biceps. And it's just terminology. So they vary in grades, which also vary in how much it hurts and how long it takes you to come back. Then we have the sprain. There's ligaments that attach. You can see these ligaments attach here at the transverse process, as well as at the crest of the hip. And there's all tons of kind of tiny ligaments that go between each level. And we can sprain those based on poor lifting technique. Do you guys think this is good technique? No, I wouldn't even pick up a golf ball like that, which usually is out of the brush. So and then we got our disc issues. So again, this is poor technique. You should never bend and twist, right? You guys know that. And what ends up happening is we call the disc, it's very similar to that of a jelly donut. So you have kind of the dough part of the donut here, and then the jelly filling on the inside. And this is a shock absorber, but it also helps us move. It allows us the opportunity to articulate these joints in many different ways. And you can see that when you herniate this jelly out of the side, it can impinge those nerves. So in a nutshell, the jelly protrudes posteriorly or towards your back and then impinges those nerves. So that's because of flexion. Squeeze on one side and the jelly's going to go out of the hole, right? But if you squeeze on the other side, you can kind of get that jelly to go back in. But we'll talk about treatment more specifically in a little bit. That's surprisingly hard to read. So it pretty much says that a herniated disc is that jelly coming out of the donut, thus the image. And it really is a lot like that and very fixable. It's not a terminal injury. It's not something that is going to be debilitating the rest of your life if you can treat it properly. And that's what we're here for. Degeneration. So here is an example of layers of degeneration. This is normal disc. This only exists in like 24 and younger for the most part. And then we start to get some of these changes. The big thing is in disc generation is going to be these osteophytes and this decreased height. Now some of this is unavoidable. As we age, the tissues dehydrate, the pressures of life, standing, walking, being a human, are going to compress these areas and cause our body to lay down more tissue, lay down more bone tissue, and we get some of these bone spurring. But, we can really help control those negative effects of that by maintaining good posture, maintaining good muscle balance, and maintaining good movement habits. And then also I put on there evenly dispersal of body mass. So it's kind of like when your body mass starts to slump down and move more towards the front, it's going to put more stresses on your lumbar area. So this is a really excellent diagram to kind of help you understand where good lifting techniques are, right? Like how do we prevent this stuff? So anywhere in this red zone, especially anything over a few pounds, is going to be very dangerous. We want to lift and keep it close to our body. And the fulcrum effect kind of says that when you bend at your hips, that becomes the fulcrum, and the amount of forces based on how much further you go can be 10 times that of what you experience just standing. And of course, there's very few materials on the planet, much less biological materials, that are designed to take 10 times their normal forces. So, We have I put them out on the desk out there. We've got these cool little badge cards to kind of help you remind you with lifting techniques. And Mary and Eric did those way back, and they still stand true. We hand these out all the time. And recently, we made a little video. It's only 1 minute, and I'd like to share it with you guys very quickly.
This is a phase 2 rehab watch. Repeat, this is a phase 2 rehab watch.
Wait, don't lift like that.
What do you mean?
Make sure that you bend your knees and keep an arch in your back. Don't just bend straight over.
Like this?
Yep, and keep it close to your body.
Okay.
Good. Now, where are you going to go with it?
Right over here.
All right, make sure that you pivot and move your feet. Don't just twist your upper half.
Like this?
Yep, good.
Okay.
Make sure you keep your eyes up and focused on where you're going.
Alright.
Awesome. And now a few more tips. Make sure that you push whenever possible instead of pulling. Take your time and plan it.
RehabWorks athletic trainers are here for you. We're a free on-site orthopedic and injury prevention service. We're available at the contact information below. Stay safe, KSC.
So that's our little PSA on that, and we're working on developing some more of those. You can find it on YouTube if you wanted to share it. Just search, KSC RehabWorks, and you'll see some balance zone videos I did, and we've done some internship promotional stuff, and we're going to be making some more videos to come out. Right now, we're going to be working on a dynamic stretching routine or warm-up routine for industrial athletes, for people getting ready to do some lifting rather than coming in cold. So we're going to move on a little bit more to that repetitive motions. So those repetitive motions are really, like I said, I think that we deal with more when we're talking about office ergonomics, right? You guys see it a lot in that you have people who have workstations that are not well set up. And so they might have 2 monitors, but they are using the monitor that's to their right 65% of the time, and then they ultimately get neck pain and they're irritated, and it's like, well, I mean, would you sit sideways in your car while you drive? You wouldn't do that, right? So those types of repetitive motions can cause imbalances. And this is a really cool schematic that I found that kind of talks about the root causes, which as an athletic trainer at RehabWorks, what we do is we really spend time with our patients and really try to dig and find out what the root causes are. It might be a sleeping habit. It might be a workstation issue. It might be a hobby. All of those things can contribute, and being able to identify what that root cause is and address that issue, we can help manage those symptoms later on. So Microsoft in 2013 posted a study that says the U.S. workers spend an average of 7 hours on the computer each day. How many of you guys think you spend 7 hours on your computer every day? Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not well set up for you, then it's going to lead to making these accommodations, these secondary injuries, and then ultimately it could lead to those. And these habits also carry over at home. So one of the things that we're seeing is with the convenience of technology, it's also becoming a dependence. My daughter's 6 months old. My wife and I have made this pact that no matter how angry she gets, she's not getting a cell phone. We're not handing it to her at dinner so that she can watch videos and stuff like that. You want her to be involved in the environment, right? I grew up in Western Kentucky. I graduated high school in 2003. I didn't have a cell phone, not because my parents didn't let me, but because we didn't have towers. Nobody had cell phones. And I kind of want her to try to experience the world a little bit, but also, we're all looking down. I mean, look at these kids. They're 2 years old. She's going to play with devices. I'm not going to be like that about it, of course. We want to have a good dinner. Here, just take this. Take this salt shaker and, make a mess. When I worked in high school, it was very similar. Especially the high school kids think that they're slick, right? They got this desk here, so obviously I have no idea what they're doing under their desk. So they sit down like this, and they're looking at their phones. And I had a laser, and I'd shine a laser on them and say, hey, nobody looks at their crotch and smiles. You're not fooling anybody. You're definitely looking at your phone. Put your phone away. So we're progressively more and more on our phones. We see issues with people distracted walking, right? cruising down the sidewalk, and next thing you know, have you seen those videos where people like fall in manholes and like run into open doors because they're not paying attention to where they're going? And, of course, we have our office ergonomics. Frankly, the laptop situation is difficult because you're bound to this tiny little box, right? And so how much more ergonomic can you get if you're sitting with your laptop on your lap, right? Great. And then ultimately, you could end up with some degenerative changes. And unfortunately for this lady, I don't know how many times she's had a chance to look at the stars. So, we've dubbed this term tech neck as a result of the technology. And I've had a lot of people ask me too, like, well, how come it's changed so much? We used to read all the time. And I'm like, well, how many times do you get lost into a book for 2.5 hours? Some people do. I think it's great. But how many of us have gotten lost in Facebook on our phone for 2.5 hours and didn't even realize it happened? It probably happens on a weekly basis, truthfully, for a lot of us. So, and then plus, we end up with a little bit of fatigue. So this is 8 a.m., you get to work, you're excited, you're like, I got stuff to do, I'm gonna sit in good posture today. Then you eat lunch and you're like, oh man, it's just dragging. You're starting to feel the pressure a little bit, you got stuff to do, and you're thinking about dinner, and then, by 1:22, it's just creeping, you're just slumping down. So, it matters. We gotta pay attention to it all the time. We kind of discussed some of this anatomy, the cervical spine over here on the left. You can see the difference in the shape. This is designed to take loads. This is not really designed to take loads. The muscles are much smaller. The discs are smaller. All of it's smaller. And as we continue to get into these poor postural positions, how many of you guys have been this person standing in Publix, waiting for your turn, right? So we're increasing these forces by huge numbers. Your head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds. And as we get further down the road, you can see that at 60 degrees, it's about 60 pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot. And those tissues are not designed to take that load, especially in that position. So this is what we start to see. We start to see those disc herniations and those degenerative changes, and they start to impact these nerves. And these nerves are correlated with, a map on your arms. And so we'll have people come in and say, oh, I had an EEG or an EMG rather, testing for carpal tunnel, because my hands are tingling. But they said it's not carpal tunnel, what the heck? And then they come in, they're like this. It's like, well, it might be your neck. So what we try to do is we try to prevent the compression on these structures. So you can see there's not a lot of space in there. And this is an exaggerated diagram. So how many of you guys get these tension headaches? Get those behind your eyes, kind of over your eyes a little bit. It may not necessarily be something nutritionally. It could be a referral pain pattern from trigger points. Trigger points are over-irritated areas of the musculature, especially in these postural muscles. They get into a mechanical disadvantage, and they're not able to produce the forces that they're being asked to produce. And they get fatigued, and they start to cramp, and they start to tighten, and then that grows, and you get these referral pain patterns. We see these all the time. So what do? Well, first off, you get an ergonomic evaluation. You give them a call. You talk to your safety person. You talk to your manager and say, hey, I think my workstation needs to be set up a little bit differently. And then you go through the process, and call OHF, especially if you're having symptoms. They'll do an evaluation. They might kick you to us. Hopefully they do, so that we can help facilitate the ergonomic change. And then you'll work with Robin and her group about getting some equipment or making modifications to your workstation. Here's a website here as well about doing a little bit of a self-check. And there's tons of resources out there. Robin actually put together a wonderful sheet that has more resources than I ever knew existed on ergonomics. And it's great. I'm starting to give it to my patients like, hey, and then I'll highlight one or two of them like, hey, this one applies to what you're dealing with. But it's going to take me a little while to really get versed in what every one of them has to offer. But if you come see us, we're going to apply some modalities. One of the new modalities that we have that is really, there's science behind it. We understand the science, but to our patients, it really is magic, is the laser. It really has been incredibly impressive at relieving symptoms, relieving trigger points, relieving nerve pain. My student had a headache, and we had the the manufacturer of the laser come in and talk to us about inhibiting a nerve ganglia in your sinuses in the back of your nose. So I took a probe, put some really cool, Terminator glasses on her, and put a probe up her nose and inhibited that ganglia and made her headache go away. She was debilitated. It was amazing within 2 minutes. So we like to use that a lot. Active postural awareness is going to be one of the biggest things, and changing your postural habits, right? You guys are familiar with the sit-stand, progression, with the sit-stand movement that's happening. At one point, I think that there was the exercise ball movement, where everybody was sitting on exercise balls. But it doesn't matter if you're sitting in an ergonomic appropriate chair, on an exercise ball, or standing. If you have bad postural habits, you're going to have bad posture. And it carries over to your life. When you're driving home, you're going to hear my voice, and you're going to think about your posture. Not right away, all right? You're going to hit like US 1 about 15 minutes into your drive, and you're going to be like, man, what? This isn't helping me see any better. And you're going to kind of straighten up. It matters. I do it all the time. I have to do it for myself. And then therapeutic exercises. I'm very quickly going to kind of go over some of the stuff that we like to give our patients. So here's some good stretching. So a lot of times we exist in flexion, right? It doesn't matter if we're cooking, if we're washing dishes, if we're driving, if we're looking on our phones, if we're on our laptops. We live our lives in flexion. So we want to kind of move into extension, apply a little overpressure. We're going to do some lateral flexion. This is a good time for participation. So do some lateral flexion, some good sine bending, and some rotation to kind of help relieve some of those tight muscles that we've identified. One of the really good things that we like to use are these trigger point balls. This actually is a position for thoracic outlet syndrome. That's a whole nother talk. But it was one of the best examples I could find. And when we give these to our patients, we actually have super balls, like bouncy balls, and they look like the world because we're NASA, right? And we always like to tell them, we give you the world when you come to RehabWorks, and literally hand them a little. It's stupid, I know, but I like it. So what we end up doing is we teach them how to put the ball behind the wall and kind of target those trigger points, right? And I always imagine when they go back to their workstation that this is what their coworkers see. A little scene from the Jungle Book going on in their workstation. So strengthening, we want to create strength and locomuscular endurance in these postural muscles. So we do exercises like this and also like this. We'll give you a giant rubber band as long as you promise not to snap your coworkers with it. And we'll give you the opportunity and teach you how to do these exercises to help, again, increase that locomuscular endurance in these postural muscles. And then the last of the top three that we saw were the slips, trips, and falls. That is one of the bigger causes of injury. And so what RehabWorks has done, Mary has teamed up with NASA Safety and Darcy Miller and developed this program. And we've been implementing balance zones all over center and really kind of trying to make it accessible for everyone to go take a little, I say take a Wii break, because we have the Nintendo Wiis in there. And what we're trying to do is prevent, the degeneration of balance. If we go and balance on one foot, a lot of us are not as good at it as we used to be when we were 20 or so, but you can work on it. You can practice and get better at it. And then when you do kick that thing in the sidewalk because you're looking at your phone, you'll be able to recover a little better without hurting yourself. So we did a balance study with Biodex as well, which was very cool. You might see some of our flyers up there, but this is one of my favorite ones. Katrina from the fitness center helped me develop that one. That was one of her ideas, and I think it just really is very fitting, because I know right around 3 o'clock we're all kind of reaching for that 5-hour energy or some green tea or something to kind of get through the rest of the day. But you get up and you move a little bit, and it can re-energize you, and it only takes a couple minutes, and there's some fun stuff in there to go use. And they're all over the place. And we're looking for more locations. So if you guys know of any little area, all we need is a little corner to put some balance boards and some pads in there. We've got another WeFit system that we're looking to deploy somewhere. So if you have space that we can use, please contact us. And And I'm not going to take more time to show you any more videos, but there's a link there as well to the balance zone drill videos that we've produced. And kind of the moral of the story is motion is lotion. Get up and move around. The more you move, the more blood flow is going to be to the area, the more synovial fluid production you're going to get in your joints, the better it's going to be. That's going to help a lot with that degeneration. So I don't mean go and train for a marathon. I just mean go take a walk. Go to a balance zone. Stand on one foot for a few minutes. Or if you come in, do some of these micro break exercises as well. Some of those stretches I showed you. And there's a video as well. I'll be posting it by the end of the week. I got to finish editing it, but it's also on micro breaks, similar to the one we did before. So, again, just reiterating the Ergonomics Month. Thank you, Robin, very much for putting it all together. So I've got another talk tomorrow. Tell your friends that I wasn't terrible. And, maybe they'll come out. And then we've got Office Ergonomics next week. And in a couple weeks, we've got Layla coming in. And just a last little plug, RehabWorks is here for you. We were cited as a best practice facility during the VPP STAR audits, both for IMSS, ChemCon, and when they were here for Jacobs as well. And then the OCHMO audit also gave us best practice. Come see us. If you're having any issues, we want to prevent injuries. Mary always says that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, if you have questions, even if you feel okay, but you have questions, we can teach you some things. We just want to be a part of the team of injury prevention. And we're doing this promotional thing during the month. Show us your meme. Memes are very popular. And what we want to try to do is get some unique perspectives on what people are seeing out here on center. So take a picture of something you see, put some script over it, and email it to me. And the best one's going to get, do we get those chairs? Or I mean the pads. Prizes. Yeah, we have prizes. It's a surprise. All right, so it's a surprise. Well, we didn't get chairs. We do have prizes. Yeah, we've got some prizes. So if you have a creative friend or something, or yourself, please just email me. And we're going to pick a winner each week. And then we're going to use it as like a promotion for the following week and next year, and we'll make sure you get a prize. And so just send it to me. And if you have anything at all, come see us. Thank you guys very much.
Any questions? Wow. Oh, okay.
I'll just shout here. Oh, I've heard. Hey, are you guys trying to work at all with? Well, first let me just say we're from the agency office here. So when he says that we point out, OCHMO's pointed out this is a best practice. Truly, among NASA's 14 sites, this is a unique program.
Yeah.
And I love to see the energy from Ian and Mary and Eric Nason before that, and the effort that they're here really serving the workforce. And we're really fortunate to have this resource here.
Thank
and
you.
it is a best practice. It's the only one. There's some efforts like this down at Johnson, but that's focused on a very narrow set of the workforce, the astronauts. And this is for the broader population. But have you guys tried to reach out as new Space Act tenants come here to Kennedy Space Center, like SpaceX, like Lockheed Martin back here in the high bay? Have you tried to reach out to those folks to try to help them address these kind of issues within their workforce?
Absolutely. In fact, 60% of our patient load is contractor-based. So it's a little bit less than 40% are NASA. And so we do try to reach out and extend our services to them. The preventive aspect of the industrial side of it is kind of something that I'd like to kind of start to get in a little bit more, and the working group is really helping facilitate that, working with TOSC and Jacobs and SpaceX and some of those. And so the short answer is absolutely. Given the opportunities, I'm looking for better communication as far as maybe points of contact with inside those organizations to be able to send, specific things. Because I love the daily news, but sometimes I don't think everybody has a chance to read it all. And so I'd like to find more specific advertising avenues to kind of tell them what we're about and how we can help.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you have this,
Yes.
folks. And then, of course, you have Blue Origins building a plan out there. And it's one of our, I know, one of our interests is that we somehow try to be some of these new players within the space industry that fully they can take some things.
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick, Ian?
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things with the ergonomic working group is we've invited all of those groups. So whether they do a WebEx, join in, or they get the minutes, or they attend the meeting, they're starting to learn about all this. And Ian did a presentation a couple of months ago, the same topic at one of the working groups. So I think we're using that as an avenue to reach out to people. We're trying lots of different ways. So that's one aspect, one way to do it, we're hoping. And then having presentations like this and, the word spreads is also, of course, helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions?
We are going to try to post the presentation on our KimCon website. We have an outreach website and the slides. So there is a flyer in the back. You can grab it on your way out if you didn't already, and it has the listings, and you'll see reminders and daily news. So we appreciate you guys coming. Come back next week and tell your friends.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.